We are now 17 months into the war that started in November of 2020. The first 8 months of the war were characterized by gross violations of human rights, widespread use of sexual violence as a weapon of war, arbitrary and mass killing of innocent Tigrayans, and much more horrors committed against Tigrayans by the allied Ethiopian and Eritrean forces. The rest 9 months that followed the forced evacuation of the Eritrean and Ethiopian forces from most parts of Tigray were then marked by an all-encompassing siege on the entire region, which has led to a humanitarian catastrophe. Since June of 2021, when Ethiopian and Eritrean troops were forced out of much of the region, the entire region has been put under comprehensive siege where all fundamental items, including food, medical supplies, and fuel, have been blocked from entering Tigray. This is in addition to the termination of critical services such as banking, electricity, and telecommunication services. This blockade has left more than 6.5 million people in Tigray in dire need of humanitarian assistance, making it one of the longest and disastrous sieges in modern history.
No food has reached Tigray since mid-December, and almost no fuel has been delivered since August of last year. The siege of 6 million people in Tigray by Eritrean and Ethiopian forces for more than 500 days is one of the longest in modern history.
Siege is a military blockade of a city or fortress, or in the case of Tigray, a whole region where the besieged area is cut off from the rest of the world and denied of essential items, where in some cases food aid and medical supplies are included. If it denies civilians from accessing basic needs and endangers their rights to live, siege is considered a legal form of collective punishment. Regardless, in different corners of the world, siege has been used as a military technique to make the enemy surrender while starving and killing civilians. The siege of Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia, is an example of modern history siege that has lasted for nearly 4 years, beginning from April of 1992 to 1996. The siege had cut people of the Bosnian capital of food, medicines, water, and electricity, with the city being bombarded continuously, leading to the death and injury of thousands of civilians. This had brought suffering to more than 400,000 residents of the city. The siege of Gaza, imposed by Israel on 2007, following Hamas taking control of Gaza, is also another example of a blockade in the modern history. This blockade has lasted for 15 years and has severely limited travel, trade, and everyday life for over 2 million residents of Gaza, and has cut off Palestinians from Jerusalem, which served as their center for hospitals, banks, and other vital services. In such and other cases, humanitarian corridors have been put in place since the mid-20th century and have served to ensure safe access to humanitarian workers and refugees in many places, including in Bosnia during the Sarajevo siege. A humanitarian corridor is a temporary demilitarized zone to allow the safe passage of humanitarian aid as well as refugees out of a crisis region. Amidst the crisis in Sarajevo siege, in an attempt to save the lives of the people in Sarajevo, the UNHCR claims that it had coordinated a massive logistical operation between 1992 and 1995, where close to 950,000 tons of humanitarian relief supplies have reached Bosnia and Herzegovina, including 12,000 flights between 1992 and 1996, delivering about 160,000 tons of food, medicines, and other goods in airlifts alone, while able to evacuate as many as 1,100 people in urgent need of medical care. For the past 9 months of the blockade in Tigray, however, the Ethiopian government has refused to establish humanitarian corridors, allowing regional forces to obstruct humanitarian work. Because of this and the siege, there are currently over 6.5 million people in Tigray in dire need of humanitarian assistance.
Data from our office indicates that there are now 6.53 people in urgent need of food assistance.